Hello there. Every time I come on here, I keep saying Doc Hatfield, preacher man Piper, but surely y'all know that by now. I mean, you can't mistake this mug for anybody else. You know, I was watching Chad on here, and I was watching Onion on here, just sitting in this smoking a pipe. Oh, by the way, this is that Missouri Meerschaum Christmas pipe. And I'm sure liking it. And I'm smoking Carter Hall in it. Had to break it in with Carter Hall, you know what I'm saying? Because that's my favorite. And so, what I was saying, I was listening to Onion and Chad on here, and notice how they just sit around and just relax and smoke their pipe and have a little conversation. I've never been one that was able to do that. I have to have some kind of plan as to what to say and when to say it. I had I had a preacher contact me on in my email, and he said, Doc, he said, one thing I can say about you is you speak your mind, whether whether people want to hear it or not. He said, I believe that you believe that honesty makes for the better relationships. And he said, so I've got a question for you. And so he asked me the question, and I answered it. What he asked me was, he said, I know you just tell people like it is. He said, so I'm just going to come out and ask you straight out. Is it wrong for me? He was a pastor now. He said, is it wrong for me to drink a beer? And I said, well, you want the honest answer? He said, yeah, I want the honest answer. I said, well, let me ask you a question, then I'll answer it. Have you had a beer recently? He said, well, I said, that means you have. He said, well, yes, I did. And I said, now you don't know whether to feel guilty about it or what? He said, no, I just don't know what my church would think about it if they knew that I drank a beer. And I said, well, you want the answer, so here's the answer. There's nothing wrong with you drinking a beer. There's nothing wrong with you taking a drink of whiskey. There's nothing wrong with you taking a glass of wine. I said, Jesus turned water into wine. Jesus said, take a little wine for the stomach's sake. Paul said, everything is lawful unto me. I said, so if you want to drink a beer every night, you can do that. I said, if you want to go naked in your house with your wife, I said, that's fine. I said, you and your wife can get stark naked and dance in your house. He said, well, now, you know we preach against dancing. I said, I know you do, but I said, we're talking about with your wife. I mean, after all. And he said, well, yeah. I said, so understand that there are things that you can do in your home that no one else needs to know about. No one else needs to know that you do it. It's none of nobody's business. I said, let me ask you a question. When you drank that beer the other day, I said, did it do anything to you? He said, no. I said, okay then. Don't worry about it. Don't let what the world or even what the church says. I said, you know I smoke a pipe. I said, when I came home from the service in 1966, I said, I was smoking a pipe. I said, my dad being a pastor, I said to him, I don't know how I can do this and preach too. And he said, well, when you go to preach a revival, you don't have to be smoking the pipe out. You can just smoke it in your motel room. I said, well, that's true. He said, you need it, or he said, you'll have all them ulcers. So just smoke it in your motel room. Don't worry about it. He said, if you're really worried about it, ask God to convict you of it if he thinks it's wrong. So I did. I asked God. I said, God, I said, if this is wrong for me to do, I don't care what the church says. I want to know what you say. If this is wrong, convict me of it. Well, I'm telling you, here in 10 more days, I'll be 75 years old, and he's yet to convict me of it. My wife came home the other day and said that a lady that was working in the house that she's working in come down with this COVID, and she had to go home, and she'll be off for 2 or 3 weeks. She said, so you better not, I don't know if I better be around you or not. She said, I don't have anything. I don't feel anything. I said, I ain't worried about it. I'm not worried about it in the least bit. I said, I'm not going to get that COVID unless God wants me to have it. And if that's the way he chooses to take me out of this life, I thought, that's okay. I don't care. Fine with me. I said, I'm ready to go. My mother-in-law had that COVID, and she's doing good, and she's 94 years old. Can you believe that? 94 years old, and she's doing good. I'm just so happy about that. Not for me, but for my wife. My wife was talking to her brother on the phone today, and she said, well, I was going to do one of them group texts, but said, I don't know how to do it. And I went, hello, I'm over here. Ask. So after she got off the phone, I went over and showed her how to do a group text. She says that I have to die first, or she has to die first. She said the reason she has to die first because if I die first, then she'll be lost with all this computers and telephones and iPads and all that stuff. She can't do nothing on them. She's always asking me to fix something she'll screw something up like you wouldn't believe. She even screws up the TV. And I have to go in there and fiddle around with that and get that thing to going back right again. Well, I've been thinking about all of y'all on here and about this COVID thing. And I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody's feeling all right. And if you're feeling some symptoms of this thing, and and you take care of yourself right, you'll come through it. You'll certainly come through it, and I want you to come through it, every one of you to do that. I'm enjoying this little old pipe. It's a neat little old thing. It's a good clincher. It's because it's light as a feather. Well, you know, it's not light as a feather, but you know. Well, I'm going to get over here. I've rambled long enough. A fellow walked into a bar the other day, and a woman was sitting in there and watching the news, and a fellow was up on a big high building, was threatening to jump off, and that fellow said to that girl, said, I bet you he'll jump. She said, I bet you he won't. He said, I'll bet you $50. She said, I'll take you with that. And after a few minutes, he jumped. And the fellow said, I can't take your money. Said, I watched the early news and said, I saw him jump on that one. And she said, well, I watched the early news too, and I saw him jump on that one too, but I sure didn't think he'd jump on this one. Do it twice in a row. That's the end of my jokes. Y'all have a good day, and I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.